Welcome to Booze for Thought. This is episode 2. I am Chris Kurtz, and today we're going to be talking about the Boulevardier, which is a riff on the all-time classic, the Negroni. The Negroni is great because, well, one, it tastes great, and two, it's very easy to remember and easy to make. There are only 3 ingredients, equal parts, gin, Campari, and sweet vermouth. Now, today we're talking about the Boulevardier, which is a riff on the Negroni. So we're going to take this gin and we're going to replace it with some bourbon. This 10-year-old Eagle Rare, which I just tried for the first time and is absolutely fantastic. So the thing about the Boulevardier is I've heard what have I heard? So the thing about the Boulevardier is that there are 2 ways to make it. I've heard both recipes multiple times from multiple sources, and to prove it, I even have 2 books in my collection here that give 2 different recipes, and it's all about the ratios, all the same ingredients, but it's all about ratios here. So Death & Co., which is one of my all-time favorite cocktail books, gives what I'm going to say the contemporary ratio, and that's 1.5 ounces of bourbon. So you up the bourbon a little bit, and then you cut down the Campari and sweet vermouth, so you have 3/4 of an ounce of each. So that's like the contemporary ratio, and then we have the traditional ratio in this Negroni book. I mean, how can that be wrong? And that really is a true 1-for-1 swap, bourbon for gin. So you have equal parts of bourbon, Campari, and sweet vermouth. So I wouldn't say this one is exactly a myth. It's more just 2 very convicted groups of people who have their way to make a Boulevardier. And I don't think one is right or wrong, but what I do want to do is test the both of them side by side. So I am going to do a blind tasting here and see what those flavor differences are. Is it really strong? Can you really tell that difference, or is it more nuanced? Not really sure what to expect here, but hoping that by the end of it, I will come out of here with a preference, because I've never tasted them side by side, and I gotta know which way to make my Boulevardier. Okay, so to do a true blind tasting, I am going to blindfold myself, and my special assistant is going to switch these up or not switch them up, and I'm going to see what the difference is. This is actually really hard to even like. Oh. Okay.
Do you need a cut?
Okay. This is really weird. I've never actually tasted with a blindfold on. Oh. Okay. Number 1, I smell a lot of Campari coming through, so I'm wondering if this is the equal parts. Okay, that feels like equal parts. Way less Campari on this one. Although it comes through, okay. I would have to guess that this one on my left is the bourbon heavy, and this one on the right is the equal parts. Nailed it. I got these right. I don't think it was overly hard, because you could really smell the Campari coming through on this equal parts one, which obviously reminds me more of a regular Negroni. I have to say though, I think I like this contemporary ratio, which is double the bourbon and cut the Campari and sweet vermouth down. The interesting thing about the contemporary ratio is it becomes more almost like a Manhattan, or in between a Manhattan and a Negroni, because now you're doing 2 parts bourbon to 1 part sweet vermouth. And then Campari kind of acts like that bitter component, so it's kind of in between a Manhattan and a Negroni, which I kind of like. I think if I were to choose one, if I were going to serve a Boulevardier to a patron or a guest, I would probably choose contemporary ratio. So props to Death & Co. Not that I'm surprised by that at all. My dog just has to drink his water right now. all of his water. So, episode 2 about the Boulevardier. I think both are excellent drinks. I have to say they're both really good. I'm a huge fan of Negronis, so the traditional ratio is still really good. But I think this one, the contemporary ratio is a little bit more balanced, despite them no longer being equal parts. I think there's something to be said with the Campari and the bourbon together that you do need a little bit more bourbon to balance that drink out. So, episode 2, Boulevardier, I'm going with the contemporary ratio because that drink kicks ass. Thank you for joining episode 2 of Booze for Thought. If you have any ideas or myths or questions, whatever you want me to answer, I am there for you because this is probably the most fun thing I've done in a really long time. So, see you on episode 3.